Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. Today we're taking a look at the Elementalist, the Magicka Warden DPS build. These builds that I'm releasing are for in-game, to help you get to in-game, and most of them are set up for dungeon play. After the video I'll show you guys, or at the end of the video I'll show you how to set it up for trial play and what changes you need to make to do that. So let's go ahead and get started. First off, right out the door, you can see we have a 38k Magicka, 17k health, and 11k stamina. We have a high stamina, or a little bit higher stamina for dodge rolling and blocking capabilities, and like breaking free, that kind of stuff. We have a high magic recovery, so that we can self-sustain while we're in dungeons or early normal trials. Spell damage is 2670, 57% spell critical. We do have a spell resistance of 13,000 with physical resistance of 11, but only on the front bar. On the back bar it goes to 11 and 10. We are running the Apprentice Mundus Stone with Major Prophecy, so we do have Inner Light on both bars, and we are running Witchmother's Brew. This gives us max Magicka, max health, and max Magicka recovery. But really good overall. I just want to show you guys what it's going to look like with a potion equipped. So you can see we have a 3200 spell damage with a 57% spell critical. This can go up to almost 5k with all of our buffs, or with all, like in a group. And we do have a 1700 magic recovery, which is really, really good. So taking a look at the gear now. We are running two 5-piece sets and a 1-piece monster set. The 1-piece monster set running is Ice Heart, light with a Magicka glyph in it. Now, the 5-piece set we're running, main 5-piece set we're running is Julianus, and we are running this with a light helm, heavy chest, medium legs, and in the helm, chest, and legs we are running Tri-Stat glyphs. In all the smaller pieces, we are running Magicka glyphs, so that we can get the greater benefit. Now, the other set we're running is Iskramir. Now, the reason we're running Iskramir is we are a Warden, so we gain increased spell damage already, 6% for being a Warden, and being a High Elf where we get 4%, so we get a 10% increase in spell damage. We only use only a handful of ice spells, but we do want to make sure they do as much damage as possible, and it does improve our overall DPS. So that's kind of what we want to do. On the Iskramir jewelry, we have 2 spell damage with a magic recovery. Again, I will explain how you can change all this stuff when we get to the end of the video. We are running 2 Iskramir staves, 1 Inferno, 1 Lightning. Now, you can use an Ice Staff on the front bar as long as you do not heavy attack. You can use an Ice Staff. I'm just doing the test with the Inferno Staff just to show you guys the benefit. So... but the nice thing about Iskramir is it gives you spell critical, max Magicka, spell damage, and then more spell damage towards your frost damage abilities. Now remember, you're only using a handful. You're only using like 3. And then when you're in a trial, you'll only be using 2, so there's no reason after that. So the Iskramir Fire Staff on the front bar is Nirnhoned with a Shock Enchant. This is going to give us greater damage on the front bar because we are using light attacks. And so Nirnhoned is going to give us more control into our light attack damage. On the back bar, we are using a Iskramir Lightning Staff that's infused with weapon damage and spell damage. And when we're on the back bar, when we're doing our heavy attack rotation, because that's where we're going to do our heavy attack rotation is the back bar, we're going to get that proc of that extra weapon damage, which is going to keep our overall damage consistent. Alrighty then. So let's go ahead and... take a look at the skills here. So going over the class skills, just make sure you get all the class passives no matter what. Even if you're not using certain skills, get the passives, they help out. When it comes to the weapons, get all your weapon passives. Your armor, get your armor passive, especially the light armor passives. Now you are wearing a 511. On the medium armor, you don't need the first 2 if you don't want them. This one is still good to get because of stam recovery, because of blocking and things like that. You're not going to have a really high recovery, but it still helps. And then athletics, you definitely want this for the roll dodge capability. Heavy armor, you want all 3 passives. And then on the world skills, you can be a vampire with this or a werewolf, but suggest either or. It's up to you. I don't really play them, so I can't really say. Vampire would be good though, for the extra magic recovery and the when you get below 50% health thing. Fighters Guild, you only need Intimidating Presence and Banish the Wicked. Mages Guild, make sure you get all of them because you are going to be using one of these skills or two of these skills that do damage. So on Dawned, make sure you get these two passives, and then with Alliance War, you don't need anything, so you don't even need to do PvP with this build. High Elf racials, especially like if you pick to be a High Elf, make sure you pick make sure you fill in all the racials, and no matter what race you pick, always fill in the racials. Alchemy, get the medicinal use, and provisioning, make sure you get Gourmand and Connoisseur. You want your foods to last longer, so. Alright, so let's go over the skills on the bar. Now, you guys are going to probably question why I have some things set up the way I do. First off, why do you have Flame Clinch? Flame Clinch does an awesome amount of damage plus damage over time, really good against a boss. If you're just finding trash in a dungeon, you can just use Force Pulse, and it works fine. But I prefer this. The damage it does over time is really good, and it helps with your damage over time application. Next up is Winter's Revenge. This does really good damage over time, so it's really good to have out there. It also reduces the movement speed of enemies, and you have a chance of applying Chill on them because of one of your class passives, so that's a really good one to use. Next up we have Deep Fissure. This does a lot of damage in a big area, so it's just really good damage, like burst ability. The next ability we have, we can swap out. So we can use Arctic Blast, and I personally like it, especially in dungeons. But if you're not in if you're doing dungeons and you want a little bit more, you can just do this, and you'll be fine. So, but when it comes to the way I like mine set up, I like this setup better. The next ability, like I said, is Arctic Blast. Really good damage over time, plus a nice little, like, extra heal that it does. So, next ability we have is Inner Light. This increases Max Magicka by 5% and gives us Major Prophecy. For each Mage Guild ability slotted, though, you also get a 2% extra. So this actually gives me 7% Max Magicka if you make sure you fill out all the Mage Guild passives. The next ability we have, now you can go with either of these morphs, but Northern Storm is the one I like. It does really good area of effect damage. It also gives a little bit of group support by reducing the movement speed of the enemy and reducing the incoming damage taken by 30%. But while it's slotted, you gain 8% more Magicka, so it makes the damage on this bar a little bit better, even with your light and heavy attacks, or mostly light attacks. Moving to the back bar, we have Blockade of Storms. This is a really effective ability. It does a lot of good damage over time, and it also can set the enemies off balance. Next ability is Fletcher Infection. This does an amazing amount of damage over time, but the second time you apply it, it'll increase the damage you do over time. If you can keep the rotation up good enough, you can reapply this and keep that 50% damage reapplied. It's pretty nice. Next ability we have is Harness Magicka. This is a great damage shield, not only because it mitigates 12k damage, but also when the shield, when you get hit by spells, it also gives you Magicka back. So it's another way to gain resources back. Next ability we have is Blue Betty. This gives you major sorcery, but it also gives you Magicka return over time, and then every time you cast it, you can remove a negative effect. So simple single purge thing, really nice. Next up is Inner Light. Again, Max Magicka, spell crit. And last but not least, Ice Comet. Why Ice Comet on a Warden? They do ice damage anyways, and you also get 6% increase in ice damage. Plus being a Wood Elf or a High Elf, you get 4%. So that's 10% increase in ice damage along with your champion points, which is another 10%, making this spell do 20% more damage over a lot of the other ones. And actually it works out better on you as a Warden. So that's what I was talking about with the ice abilities. You have very limited ones, but having that extra 300 and something damage for them really helps out, even on the back bar. So this is a build, like you said, to help you get to end game. Next up, champion points. So very similar to a lot of my builds I've already released. 56 in the Ironclad reduces damage taken from direct damage by 20%. 56 in the Thick Skin, reducing damage over time taken by 20%. 43 in the Hardy, reducing physical poison disease damage by 10%. And 43 in the Elemental Expert, reducing flame, frost, shock, and magic damage by 10%. We do have 3 points into light armor focus just because we had extras, and this is the best place to put it. We have 16 into Expert Defender. This reduces light and heavy attack damage taken by 10%. If you guys didn't know, yes, a lot of enemies do direct damage abilities, but most enemies do 60% of their attacks as light and heavy. So putting an extra 10% in here by having 16 in this helps reduce the damage we take a lot. Next, we have 23 into Quick Recovery. This increases our healing received by 6%. Remember, most DPS don't build for healing received. Only tanks do. And healers really don't need it because they're usually in the background. They're healing anyways. So it's like they're getting healed all the time. DPS aren't. So having that greater healing received really helps. Even if it's just 6%. Next up, we have 23 into Warlord. This reduces Break Free by 10%. 20 into Sprinter, reducing the cost of Sprint by 12%. 75 in Arcanist, increasing your magic recovery by 14%. 43 into Tenacity, increasing magic return from your heavy attacks by 10%. If you guys didn't know, your heavy attacks, when you do them, you get 30% base. This gives you an extra 10, so that's 40% of your return back, and it really helps having that high recovery with this. Moving on, we have 56 into Tumbling. This reduces cost of dodge roll by 20%, and then 23 into Shadow Ward, reducing our block cost by 10%. I was mentioning that's why we have the higher stamina pool, is so that we can use these things and make them effective. Moving on to the Blue Tree, we have 56 into Elfborn. This increases your healing and critical damage done by 20%. Now, you're not healing, but that critical damage is really good to have. 43 into Elemental Expert. This increases Flame, Frost, Shock, and magic damage by X percentage. And then we have 4 into Spell Erosion for extra spell penetration. Moving into the middle tree, we have 35 into Staff Expert, 51 into Master at Arms. This gives us 20% to our light and heavy attacks. This gives us 19% to our direct damage. Our Fire Staff light attacks are all direct damage. So that's why I said on the front bar you can use an Ice Staff if you want. And in fact, I would suggest using one just because you get so much more damage out of it than you do a Fire Staff. Even with somebody using the fire, whatever, breath thing from the DK, you still get more out of this. So this will give you 20% increase in your light attacks. This gives you 19. That's 39%. This is an extra 10%. That's 49%. Now, if you add the 4% from that you're going to get for using lightning or fire, you're going to get that extra damage. But lightning staffs do not get increased direct damage from their heavy attacks. Not from Master at Arms. In fact, their heavy attacks damage is increased by this. This is why we have 19 in here. Is so that when we do our heavy attacks with our lightning staff, we get 20, 19, that's 39 with this, is 49, sorry, with this. And then with 4 more points, we actually get 53% increase in our light and heavy attacks on both bars with this setup. So that's the reason why we have this setup, is just to make sure our light and heavy attacks are consistent and they're getting the same amount of damage no matter what we're using, light or heavy attacks. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, you're not going to get as much out of Thaumaturge with this, you're not going to get the Exploiter passive. Yeah, that's okay. I actually make it up the difference with this. I also get extra damage for being, you know, ice abilities, and then this, and there's other things, but yeah, it does work out in the end, increasing your damage output. So in the last one, of course, the 51 of Thaumaturge, but that's it for the champion points. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the rotation of this build, so you guys can see for yourself how it looks. So go ahead and start with your potion. Make sure your Betty Netches up. Start with the wall elements, light attack, this light attack, and then swap bars. Do that ability, light attack, this ability, light attack, that ability, light attack, and then Arctic Winds, if you're close enough, then light attack. If you aren't using Arctic Winds, I will say this, use Scalding Ruin instead. It does a really good amount of damage. I'm going to wait until this wears off, I'll put it in its place, and then I'll run a full rotation. Alright, so now we're going to run a full rotation here. I'm going to wait for the potion to kick back up. And then we're going to run a full, like, DPS parse on this guy and bring him down. Now, you're going to see I'm not going to do a whole bunch of damage with this build. Not with this setup. But I still do enough. Oops, wrong button. Trying to get my potions to go off on time. And I made several mistakes in this rotation, guys. My bad. And there we go. 16k DPS. If you have this build set up, in the next setup, this thing will produce way more DPS than it is now. So, how do we set this up for a vet trial? Well, actually, you're going to have to change some gear around. So, first off, I'm going in here. First, you're going to change this to a 2-piece Elementalist set, because it's going to work the best. Down here, you're going to run Juliana still, but 2 light pieces of Elementalist, both Divines. With Tri-Stat, or you don't have to run Tri-Stat, but you want to run Magicka in all the gear. Then you want to drop the Iskramir and go with 3 pieces of Wrath of the Imperium. And then on the front staff, you want a Master Staff with a Maelstrom Staff back bar. Now, why a Maelstrom Staff? Or a Master Staff? Master Staffs, the reason why is because of this one ability. As you can see now, it does 8,399 damage with 7,955. And then if I beef it up with my potion, it now does 8,000 on both sides versus what I get out of this, which is 6,200 and something with 8,000 over 8 seconds. So it just gives you that little bit of extra damage on that one ability, which can play really well into your hands, especially at in-game. With that setup, though, the Wrath of the Imperium, the Julianus, the Illumbras, and that, you can actually pull, with this build, and this same CP and everything, you can pull roughly about 32k DPS. Roughly. That's if you're good enough with the rotation, know how to do all the block casting, whatever, all that kind of stuff. You can pull really good. And that's on a parse. Now, in a trial itself, you can get upwards to like 40, 50k, no problem. And that is the Elementalist. So, hope you guys like the build. I do enjoy making all these builds, guys, I really do. But you have to understand, I don't play a lot of these builds. So, I create them for you guys to have access to ideas that you can choose to play. So, but if you guys like this build, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more builds by me, you can hit that subscribe button. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.